So let's begin with the introduction of tonight, a point that I may have left out last week, that the stars impel but don't compel. That is a statement that some astrologers have made to reconcile free will with predestination. How can we say there's only predestination if we so much value something called free will? And others say there is free will, there's no predestination. But we know that the two exist. So how do we reconcile the two? And they came up with this statement, which is somewhat true, that the stars impel but don't compel. In other words, they influence, but in other words, it does not obligate you, it does not compel you to do something. We're not robots. So we do have our inclinations, we do have our preferences, we have certain interests, but we don't have to go by them. We can change our minds, we can do something different. We have free will in some areas of life. One's nature, as I pointed out, cannot be changed, but it can be controlled. And the Torah is the one that gives us the direction, the right perspective, and the strength to do battle with that evil inclination. So if one wants to make a decision to begin to do battle with a certain midah, with a certain problem that he has, even if it's not a character problem, even if it's something called alcoholism, a drug addiction, without the proper direction to do battle on your own without outside help, it's very difficult. But it's possible with the help of the Torah. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses, as I pointed out. The strengths need to be developed, and the weaknesses need to be properly dealt with. And the bottom one is one of my favorites, that even though it's a true, very true fact, I mean, it's just a fact, that the true affinity only exists between those who are of compatible elements, or as the rabbis tell us in their words, En ahava ela bedumim. Ahava, love, true love, or affinity, can only really exist between those who are compatible elements. Nonetheless, by exercising good judgment, one can learn to just get along with just about anyone. It is possible. It requires a lot of patience and tolerance. But the real glue, the real love that is there by nature, intrinsically, you don't have to do that much work, it just comes naturally, that will only be around if there's the affinity between the elements. Okay, so we're about to begin with Aries. This is just a synopsis. I don't know if you could all see it. It's a little bit small, so let me just make it bigger. I don't know if all of you could read it, but this is just a synopsis of the Aries. Remember, we spoke about the fire element. The fire element has Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. They all share many things in common, but they're different. This is a brief synopsis of Aries. He's adventurous and energetic, pioneering and courageous, enthusiastic and confident, dynamic and quick-witted. These are the good things about him. On the dark side, they can be selfish. I add the words they can be, they're not all selfish. They can be selfish, quick-tempered, impulsive, impatient, foolhardy, and a daredevil. Does everybody here know what a foolhardy person is? The foolhardy is composed of two words. Fool, and hardy, which is the Middle English word for taking risks, for being too, just taking a risk, and that's a foolish risk. So sometimes they don't think about what they're about to do, and they make mistakes. They like action, coming in first, challenges, championing causes, spontaneity. They don't like waiting around. They don't like admitting failure. They don't like opposition. And they don't like to listen to people's advice. They think they know better. This is just general for Aries. What I've done here, this is a lot of work, tremendous amount of work went into describing the various different parts of an Aries' life. In his job, how he works, how he conducts himself with people, how he behaves with his spouse, how he is as a father to children, to his employees, how he communicates, what his aspirations are, and what kind of a man is he. Does he truly love? Can he love? Does he have the ability to love? Or is he just interested in himself? I mean, we have to get into all the aspects, if possible, as much as possible, of the individual if we want to get to know him. So let's begin. Can everybody read it? I'm just going to go over it with you and elaborate a little bit more on every point. They are very hard-working people, and they should get credit for this. Not everybody is capable of working as hard as an Aries. The only thing that will bring them down is complete exhaustion. Even if they are sick, they're going to go to work. Somehow they have the ability that despite their illness, to just go to work as long as it's possible. They're capable, they have lots of energy. They're always looking for new projects. They're never happy with what they're doing at any given time because they're always looking to advance, always looking to find something else. And that is why you will notice them many times that they're always in a hurry because they're always trying to catch something else to do. That drive, because of that drive and that amount of energy that they have, they don't give too much thought to what they're about to do, and they make mistakes because they're always in a hurry, rushing a new project, something important. It's important to them, at least they think it's important, and that is why they don't always give enough thought if what they're about to do is correct, right. Think about it. They're not the type to think things through, and if they have a problem that they don't seek the advice of others. Could you imagine this combination? Not taking the advice of others, not thinking through something very well. They're going to make mistakes, and they make lots of mistakes. They don't always admit it. That's where the problems begin. See, if somebody admits it, then he has a chance to learn from his mistakes and to take whatever necessary action to make sure it doesn't happen again. They are daring and rash. For those of you who don't know what these words mean, they take risks. They are impulsive, in other words, they will do things very quickly and they will fall, but they don't accept defeat. Many of them, if they fall, they'll just get up again and go over it again. And because of their energy and the drive, they will start a lot of things. They're very good at initiating. Give an Aries a job and he will get it started, but he won't finish it. That fire will burn out. Give them a book to read, they'll never finish it, for sure not. I've never seen an Aries finish a book from cover to cover. Unless, of course, he has other influences that gives him the patience and the interest in that particular topic. They'll just flip through it. So they don't always finish. So because of that, you cannot rely on an Aries if you're going to give them an important project that they're going to do it from A to Z. Almost impossible that will happen unless it's very simple. Can't blame them. That's the way they are. It's not that they don't want to. It's just that they're going to lose interest after a while. They're going to get into something else. They care about today. Yesterday's lessons are forgotten, and tomorrow is far away. So who wants to think about it? They're just focused on what's happening today. One of their weaknesses is taking orders. They don't take orders easily, and because of that, as you can see, I wrote here that many of them just prefer to be their own boss. They can't work for someone else. They're not lazy, so that's one of the strengths that they have. Laziness being one of the bad midot, atzlut, does not usually exist by Aries. They're not lazy. They will not therefore tolerate lazy workers either. If you're working for an Aries and you're lazy, you're not going to work for him for too long. They're capable of staying up late. As I mentioned before, they work very hard. And they may call you late at night with their ideas. But it's late at night, not for them, and they expect you to be up to listen to what they have in mind. And that's why I wrote they don't need sleeping pills, because they would rather stay awake out of fear of missing out on something. They're always thinking, they're very active, and they have a lot of energy, so they don't necessarily need to sleep a lot, they don't care about sleeping as much. And this is the typical, and every one of you who may have some Aries in him will not necessarily have all of this. As far as their mannerisms, they're very forceful, assertive. Now, assertive is good sometimes because you can get your point across clearly and briefly without beating around the bush. So to be assertive is something that's very helpful. The problem is that these individuals are so assertive and so aggressive that if they are out to get what they want, they will work very hard on getting it. They don't give up so quickly. That is why they come across as pushy, aggressive, and they may even step on others. They have so much confidence of themselves that as they're pursuing whatever their interest is, they don't really show too much caring for the feelings of others. And this is one of their weak points. There's some truth to this. In other words, even though you can't accuse them of not being caring at all, as you will see, they're very generous people. And you might say, oh, it's a contradiction. You said that they were not caring, and here you're saying they're generous. The problem is when they're involved in what they're doing, they don't realize it. They'll step on you without really, oh, I'm sorry. They won't even say, I'm sorry. That's the problem. They're so engrossed into what they're doing, and the ones who are very pushy, they just want to get whatever it is that they have in mind done, and will not be sensitive to the feelings. They won't even listen. They'll have a hard time listening. And even if they tell you that they're listening to you, they're not really listening to you. They're just focused on whatever it is they want to accomplish, and that takes precedent over everything else. And that's why some astrologers call them selfish or egocentric, all these terrible words, where it's not necessarily accurate, even though there is a certain ego in them, but they're so involved in what they're doing, and they very much believe in what they're doing, that it's impossible for them to split themselves in two. Some people are capable. They have the talent of splitting themselves, of listening to 10 people at the same time. And some people don't. And that is a weakness, because they come across, some of them, again, not all of them, as being very egocentric and very much interested in themselves and not sensitive to the feelings of others. And that is why they're unaware that they're causing any inconvenience to anybody. And if you speak to them, what's funny is that they'll actually be innocent. They'll show a certain innocence. Really, I didn't know that. I didn't intend it to be that way. And you don't believe him. They're just not believable sometimes, because when somebody's so pushy and aggressive, you don't want to believe that what he's saying is, that what he's trying to defend himself is true. You might say, oh, he's just covering up for what he really is. But no, he really shows a certain innocence. And it's because of this innocence and why he believes in himself that makes them so fearless. They're not afraid to go into battle. They're not afraid if somebody, they're actually very good to have around if somebody got into an accident. Even though it may be dangerous for one to step up and get close to the victim, they're fearless. So in battle, in war, they make good soldiers. Wherever it's good to have somebody who's fearless, invite an Aries. He won't mind. They get involved in a project without thinking about the consequences, and that's why many times they get hurt. But they don't mind. So send the Aries to all these dangerous situations, because they're fearless. And don't take his fearless and his aggressiveness to be something cruel or cunning. Cunning means somebody who's sly, who's plotting against you. They're not that type. It's a simple belief, a strong belief that what he's doing is right. He really believes in what he's doing. So it may come across as a lack of sensitivity, as cruel, but it's not. He really believes innocently that he's right. But you're stepping on somebody else's toes. He doesn't realize that. When it comes to conversation, conversation with an Aries is not easy at all. It's not easy. I don't wish it to anybody to have to deal with a long conversation with an Aries. They have to always take the lead. They have to have the last word. And they're only conscious of themselves. In their speech, whether it's a speech or in their conversation, on one-on-one, they have no tact. Of all the 12 signs, they are one of the tactless. They're not refined in their speech. They'll just tell you what they think. Now that's a plus. At least you don't have to guess. You'll know exactly where you're holding with an Aries, because he will be himself. He won't hide it. But for some people, that's no good. For those of us who are sensitive, for the Pisces, for the Cancer, for the Taurus, for the Scorpios, for those who have a lot of sensitivity, if they come across with an Aries, they'll be easily insulted. Unless they understand that he really is not trying to insult you, but that's just the way he talks. He does not watch himself. He's not careful. He doesn't choose his words. That's the way he is. So there's a plus and there's a minus, because he's very clear. But is that always a plus? No. Not if you're dealing with somebody sensitive. And that is why those who are sensitive are not going to be his friend. That's it. It's impossible that they would have too much of a difficult time dealing with his aggressiveness and his lack of tact. And I put here an example of somebody who was very untactful. He got very upset. Remember Nikita Khrushchev? He's an Aries. What did he do when everybody started ignoring him? He banged on the podium with the shoe to get everybody's attention. That was typical Aries. They don't like to be ignored. They don't lie. They're not into lying. They really try to be honest. As I said before, they believe in what they believe. The problem is that they exaggerate a lot. So whenever an Aries tries to sell you something, just remember there's a lot of an exaggeration, elaboration. They make good salesmen. They're just good at selling something. But it's not 100% true. Now, did they lie? They didn't intend to lie whatsoever. They just believe so much in what they're selling. Don't think that they're hungry after your money. Actually, Aries is not so much hungry after the money. He wants to succeed. He wants you to be his customer. He wants to be in charge. He enjoys that much more than the money. The making the money is not as important to him. He doesn't mind if you pay him, of course, but he's more interested in, he succeeded in convincing you. So he's not lying, but he's exaggerating. And to some of us, that's almost the same thing. And a lot of us who want honesty, complete honesty, will not tolerate somebody who exaggerates. They have grand dreams, which they will try to sell to you. They believe that they can do it better than somebody else. But don't ask them for the details or for the proof. That they always leave to someone else. They're not good in details. They can tell you about the big picture, what they have in mind, but when it comes to the nitty-gritty, the details, they're just not built for that. Some people are very good at details. Virgos are good in details. We'll get to that, Bezat Hashem. Very good in details. They know where everything is, they remember everything. They have good memory too. And for others, who cares about all the details? But Aries doesn't care about details. So don't ask him about details. Now what happens to this very powerful Aries if he can't get his way? Sometimes it will happen that there will be somebody who's stronger than him. How will they react? In the way that they know best, and that is by yelling. They're so much into yelling, again, not all of them, but some of them are very much into yelling, that they will make so much noise that their opponents will just give in, just to have peace and quiet. Okay, forget it. Okay, we give in. That's their way of convincing even their opponents. They will yell and they will argue until they get their way. Don't give in to them. But they will try. They will not take no for an answer. They get angry very quickly. Now this one is a big no. This is a minus on their record. That is one of this I can call a chisaron, a true chisaron, that the rabbis very much say that you should be careful with, never to get angry even for a good reason. They get angry very often, very quickly, but the plus of their quick anger is that they quickly calm down. And I've told you this several years ago when we spoke about relationships, that if you're married to an Aries, just remember what the weathermen say in Denver. In Denver, Colorado, the weather changes very often. It could be snowing 1 hour, the next hour, the sun is out and it's 65 degrees. They tell you in Denver, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. If you don't like your Aries husband, he's screaming at you, just wait 5 minutes. He's going to calm down. And when he calms down, he won't even remember that he got upset. He just goes on. Remember, he's full of energy. He's always rushing in a hurry. I was upset. I yelled at you when? Completely forgot about it. So if you have a problem with an Aries, just let him yell. Just listen. If you have no choice, I mean, the better thing would be to just leave the room. But if you have to listen to him, just let him finish. Afterwards, the air is going to come out of the balloon. Now, they're so angry and get angry very quickly, I added over here that they will even talk back to a traffic cop who stops them. They'll talk back to him. And they won't be concerned about the consequences of that because they're not cautious. Remember we said before, they rush into things, they do things without thinking, and they're aggressive and assertive. So they're going to talk back even to a traffic cop because they did not judge what the right thing to do is. They're not cautious. They're impatient and easily frustrated, but I added over here that they can easily forget and forgive. Thank God. Baruch Hashem, that they're able to easily forgive and forget. That's a plus. Not everybody, especially for Scorpios. Scorpios don't easily forgive or forget. When we get to Scorpio, we'll talk about that. They have a hard time. They will remember something for many, many years. Oy vavoy, to somebody who did something terrible to a Scorpio, he'll remember for the rest of his life. You lost your friendship with him if it was something really, really bad. They take it very seriously. An Aries, okay, big deal. An hour later, he forgot about it. That's a plus. So even though they have a minus, that they get upset very quickly, they calm down very quickly. The rabbis have a discussion about temper. There's one who gets angry quick, but he calms down quick. There's one who gets angry once in a blue moon, but to calm him down is very, very difficult. Which one is worse? I didn't say which one is better, they're both not good. Which one is worse? The one that gets angry often, but he calms down very quickly, or the one that gets angry once in a blue moon, every 2-3 years, right? But for him to calm down, it takes a lot of work. Which one is worse?
The second one. The second one.
The second one is worse.
I guess it depends on what your sign is. That the answer will depend on your sign, right? The answer is the one who gets angry often. The rabbis tell us because he's always getting angry. And midat hakas, anger, is very, very bad. It's not healthy. It leads to heart attacks and strokes. Yeah. So even though the other one is no good either, the one who's always getting angry is a worse midah than the one that gets angry once in a while but has a hard time controlling, calming down. But Baruch Hashem, for them, at least they forgive and forget. That's a big plus. Okay, credit cards. They don't have good credit. They don't make good credit risks, I should say. And the reason for that is because many of them, but not all, quite a few of them forget about their debts. Not that they want to, they just forget. That's not priority number one for them. They will pay you in the end after you lost your breath catching up to them. Responsibility and stability is not one of their virtues, as I wrote over here. So that's a problem. If an Aries owes you money, you may have to go after him for a long, long time. He will pay you at the end. He will pay. They're honest. They're not trying to get away with it, but that's not their priority number one right now. They're thinking about other things. They don't care about the debt. They forgot about the debt. So you may have a hard time collecting from an Aries, but in the end you will, after a lot of struggle and a lot of patience. Leadership. They usually make good leaders, but not of the country. I think there are only 2 presidents in the United States of America who were Aries, Thomas Jefferson and John Tyler in 1840. And ever since John Tyler, who was number 10, there was no Aries president. Now Thomas Jefferson is an exception. You know, even though he was an Aries, he was a great man in many ways. I mean, he had many strengths, many virtues, very smart man. He wasn't your typical, I don't think he was your typical Aries. He definitely did not have a lot of what we just said, but he still was an Aries. He made actually a good president. He was a good leader, and he gets a lot of credit for many things. So he's an exception, and there are exceptions to the rules. But otherwise, the reason why they don't make good presidents is because they're not good in economics. Right? They forget about debts, they don't know about details. They're not good when it comes to spending. A lot of them spend more than what they can really afford. They live beyond their means. So in economics, they have a problem. They're very impulsive in speech, and when you're a president, you can't be impulsive in speech. You have to speak very nicely. Right? Read my lips. Right? You have to be careful what you say. And they don't take other people's advice easily. So what kind of a president are they going to make? And then there's one more. They don't wait to see what people want because they claim to know what people need. They are more suited, therefore, for business and not for politics. They have their own mindset, and they usually does not work out as a president. The president needs to seek the advice of others, needs to cooperate, cannot be overly aggressive in his mannerisms, in his speech. And you have to be tactful. And they lack all these characteristics of being an individual who can really get along with everybody. Whereas many of the presidents of this country have been, anybody know which sign? Aquarius. Aquarius can be very friendly. They're idealistic. They can get along with just about anybody. They can be convincing and calm. They're not so pushy, diplomatic, tactful. They're very stubborn, but that stubbornness helps them in certain ways. So B'ezrat Hashem, when we get to Aquarius, we'll talk about them. Yes?
Was it David HaMelech in Aries too?
There's a lot of great leaders amongst the Jewish people, and Talmidei Chachamim, great rabbis who were Aries, of course. The Rambam was in Aries, the Gaon of Vilna was in Aries, the Maram Prague was in Aries. Sure, as far as we know, they of course had all the good qualities of the Aries. They were able to accomplish a lot because they had all this energy, and they, of course, they pushed whatever they believed in very, very strongly. They were fearless, maybe, courageous, assertive. You know, as long as you pick the good and leave the bad dormant, then you're going to, of course, accomplish a great deal. But a lot of people have this struggle in them, in themselves, and if they don't work or have the proper guidance, they're really messed up. But everybody has something good or bad. They have a strong ego, and they would rather be found dead and not weak. And because of that ego, and they don't want to show any weakness, you will rarely see tears on their face. They don't want to show any weakness. They will not easily admit their wrongs or mistakes. And that's a problem when one is doing teshuvah. One of the most important steps in doing teshuvah is admitting your wrongs, starting from scratch, admitting your mistakes. They crave for acceptance and they hate rejection. Oy vavoy, if somebody rejects them, doesn't like them, they're very, very upset. It bothers them more than anything else that somebody does not accept them or rejects them. But when it comes to opposition, they enjoy. They enjoy doing battle because of the challenge it presents. They don't mind that there's opposition because there's a challenge, and they love challenges. But they want to be accepted. They have a hard time when people reject them, disapprove of them. Here they're all confident of themselves. But that's life. You know, not everybody's going to like you. Aries are known to be very generous. That is one of the pluses that they have of all the 12 signs. All the fire elements actually have a lot of ability to do chesed, milut chasadim, kindness. I've explained this in the past, that when it comes to the mitzvah of tzedakah, for example, you will have a Leo and a Pisces performing tzedakah for different reasons. The Leo, remember Leo is fire too. Got to help the man. He's poor. There's a principle involved. And they have a heart of gold, Leos. They're generous, like Aries in a sense. A Pisces will do charity because he can't stand seeing the other poor individual in so much pain and misery. See how they're both performing the same mitzvah for different reasons that is pushing them to do the mitzvah. The real reason to do the mitzvah is because Hashem said so. But what is driving them? Different things. So, and Aries is generous. He's not stingy. He doesn't have the problem of stinginess, and if he feels that it is right to help, he will help you. And if you need his help, he will move mountains to help you. They're capable of trying to do anything possible in the world to try to help you, if you need him. However, when it comes to the restaurant, you will see both sides of him. He will criticize the waitress and the food, but if she served him, she did a good job, he will leave her a big tip. So you see his generosity in leaving a big tip, but he will still criticize. The food was not tasty. You don't look right today. Look what you're. He will point out everything. He's very frank and open, but he will leave her a tip if you like the service. But I don't recommend you go to any fire person for sympathy and comforting because they don't have the time, don't care for emotionalism. I wrote this at the end. It's another important point for those signs and elements that are really looking for comfort and are very emotional and need empathy and tie. They are not the ones. They simply cannot do a good job. Even though they'll smile at you and say, of course I'll help you, you, the one who is sensitive, will feel that it's not genuine, it's lacking, it's not there. They just don't do a good job when it comes to empathy. Those who are seeking the empathy will be able to see through it, that it's not true empathy. And they don't have the time and the patience for it. And therefore they don't make good psychologists. Now, if you find me an Aries who's a psychologist, it could be that she has water in her, Scorpio or Pisces. It's not possible, not that it's impossible, it's usually that's not their first choice. To take the time to listen to other people's troubles, I mean, no. They don't have the patience or the interest in something like that. That's not them. We need somebody else to be the nurse, to be the psychologist.
What
Yes.
does that mean that they have water in them?
Water is sentiment, emotion, feeling, caring.
Where does it come from?
That were you here last week? We
No.
spoke about the 4 elements.
Oh, okay.
That's why.
But if it's not in your sign, can you still have it?
You can still have it, but it will not be naturally to you. So some people it comes naturally. Mother Teresa, right? Whatever, forget about her sign right now. Whatever she had, it meant a lot to her to go help the poor. Not everyone is capable of doing what she did. Depriving yourself of all the comforts of life and living with the poor in Calcutta. Yeah. So it takes a certain type of individual. Everybody can do it, but some will complain, and some will not complain. Okay, now we're going to just talk a little bit about the man, the woman, and the child. We'll go real quickly through the things that pertain to each one individually. Now, why did I put this together? For those of you who are single, especially. We just spoke about, in general terms, about the Aries individual, and now we need to speak a little bit more about the potential mate, the potential Aries man. If you're dating, you got to know a little bit about him, or if you're engaged to him. If you're looking for security in a soothing partner, forget it. There will be a lot of passion on the spur of the moment, but later he may be cold. But a lot of passion, a lot more passion than other signs, on the spur of the moment. Not regularly, not at all times, but a lot of passion. Very romantic, very demonstrative. If you insult him or lose his interest, he turns into a freezer. In other words, will not show any interest in you. So be careful. Remember we spoke about the ego? So he's the type that if he ever gets insulted by his friend or spouse, he's going to be very cold. If you want to succeed in his relationship, you need to keep up with his ideas and his energy. A lot of energy, always ideas, and you have to listen to it. This man can be intolerant and very demanding. He's bossy. They can be very bossy. If you can handle that, that's good. Not everybody can. However, they're always with a smile. So if you want somebody smiling most of the day, marry an Aries. They smile a lot. Whenever you see them, they're always smiling. Most of the time. You must love what he loves. Can't be any machloket in the house. It's his way. Now, don't support the opinion of his adversaries, even if you're trying to be fair. Oh, I just want to be fair. No. Not if it's his adversary. His enemy, never. You have to support his cause, his opinions. He will spend money on you and support you. If that's your concern, that he should buy you a fur coat, a lot of diamonds. As long as he has the money, he'll do it. Remember we said before, they're generous. There's no problem with that. If that's your concern, fine. Then you have the right man. He will compliment you and encourage you. If you're looking for compliments all the time, they're very good at that. Now there are some signs that are better than him in flattery. Flattery is different than complimenting. We'll get to that another time. But they're very good at complimenting, and they're not lying about it. They actually will compliment you because there's something to compliment. Well, that's nice for a woman, that she knows that her husband will compliment her, encourage her. But can be bossy. Of all the 12 signs, they can be very, very bossy, and that's a problem. If you don't give a chance to the other guy to express his feelings and his opinions, they're impulsive. They're not good at saving money. If you want to marry someone and have an idea of how much you're going to have when you retire, are you going to have enough for a pension? Don't get involved with an Aries, because they're spending, they don't keep track of how much they spend, they're not saving for a rainy day. That's not the sign to marry. I'm not saying you should go and date this or that. Zivugim is min hashamayim. You have to have complete faith in God, that He's the one that brings people together. But I want you to be prepared, just in case you are involved with somebody, that don't be surprised. When it comes to saving money, they're not the best at saving money. Don't destroy his ego or push him around. Big mistake. Praise him and don't be negative. They can't stand people who are negative because they are very optimistic. Of all the signs, Leos to an extent, Sagittarius and even much more, are very great optimists. It's good to be around an optimist, as long as he's realistic. They're not realists, that's the problem, but at least he's positive. He doesn't like to be around people who are negative. Don't let him doubt your devotion. Oy vavoy, chas v'shalom. If he doubts that you're not devoted, he's gonna drop you. They need devotion. Everybody wants devotion, but to them it's either there or it's not, and forget it. Aries woman. Okay, as I promised before, we're going to talk about the woman too. An Aries woman, many times, even though she's the woman, she will be in charge. As they say in English, she's going to be the one wearing the pants. Is that right? Many times, not always, but the Aries women are pretty strong. They're optimistic, they're cheerful, that's great. You know why? The reason why I wrote cheerful and optimist together, because the opposite of this would be somebody who's a nag and complaining and negative. It's a big difference. And you know what? There are people out there who are negative and complaining, and I don't think anyone wants to be involved with something like that. But there is the pros and the cons. Nobody's perfect, and you can't get all the good and nothing bad. So when you're getting involved with an Aries, you're going to get somebody more on the optimistic side, more on the cheerful side. But you cannot handle a domineering male. That's going to be a problem if the Aries woman marries somebody who's a very domineering individual. She will be generous with her time and sympathy. That's where she's a little bit different than the man. She will give more of her time than the man will. Very independent and full of drive. Often pursues a career. Aries women like to work. Remember, all the fire signs are extrovert, so they will like to work. They don't like to stay at home making a sweater. Not an Aries woman. They can be cooks. They can make good cooks. But usually, many of them, at least today, in the 21st century, will pursue a career. And you know what's funny? A lot of these Aries women will end up choosing a career that really belongs to a man. A lot of them are firefighters. What's a woman doing in the fire department? She could be an Aries. I can do it. That's their feeling. That's okay. If she's comfortable with it, that's fine. Don't dampen her enthusiasm. She needs companionship. What that means is don't hide behind the newspaper in the morning. Drinking your coffee and reading the paper. They don't like that. They want to talk. They want to have companionship. They need freedom, so don't limit them. Don't tell them what hour you want them back at home. Nobody likes to be told, of course, when to come home, but Aries less. They need some freedom. You need to fight for her and take her side, just like the man. Hard for her to respect a man that makes less money than her. That's a problem that some Aries women will have. The man makes less money than them. It's going to be hard for them to respect them. Be careful with your checkbook. If she's an Aries woman, same with the man. They're not exactly very responsible. They will keep track of everything. But she's a very warm mother and not overprotected. The reason I added not overprotected is because you have a lot of warm mothers who are very overprotected. They will spoil their children. The Aries woman will not spoil her children. She will be warm, she will kiss them and hug them, she will be a good mother, and she will not be overprotected. Okay, just a little bit of advice for Aries children and advice for the Aries boss. As far as Aries children, we don't have the time to go through all the characteristics of children because a lot of them are the same. But I wrote 3 ideas that are important to keep in mind when you're dealing with this nature. Keep them busy. Boredom is very bad for an Aries, child or adult. They need to be active, they need to be doing something. Find them something to do if they can't think of it themselves. Now when it comes to guiding them, you have to use logic, praise, and affection to teach them. You can't tell them what to do. Don't give them orders. When you ask them to do something, ask with a smile. They'll like that. That's just the way it works with Aries. The education of one's children is very much dependent on what their sign is. Says you've got to educate your child according to his ways, his abilities, and his nature. So with an Aries, you can't give them orders. They'll rebel. They won't take it that easily. If you have an Aries boss, prepare to work overtime, because he does. Prepared to give up commitments for urgent matters that he'll come up with every other day. And you might say at the end that it's not so urgent after all, but to him it was urgent at that moment. So be prepared to give up your commitments, your plans that you made 6 months ago. If you want to continue to work for him, that is. Prepare to postpone your plans for his, even if you're getting married. Yeah, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, of course. But if he has something very important, he's going to ask you, oh, by the way, why don't you just change your wedding date? But I've already sent out invitations. So what? Call him up. Tell him you changed the date. At first, he's going to try. He won't be stubborn about it. He won't insist. But he's going to try. He's going to try to get his way, even though it means you changing your plans to conform with his plans. Demonstrate utter devotion. And last but not least, do him a favor. Help him avoid future mistakes. Because he makes too many mistakes, but do so tactfully, in a very nice way. Oh, it would be better to do it this way. You know, last time it didn't work out so well. Don't blame him, don't accuse him. If you want to help him, do it in a tactful way, and hopefully it will help him avoid mistakes. The last chart I put together is a chart of Midot. There probably are more Midot. I compiled it from various Sefarim, including Mesilat Yesharim, Orchot Tzadikim, Sifrei Musar. You have arrogance, humility, shyness, audacity, love, hatred, compassion, cruelty, joy, worry. Harata, I guess we can translate somebody who regrets and is remorseful, anger, appeasement, jealousy, zerizut, diligence, zeirut, caution, atzlut, laziness, nedivut, generosity. Saikanut is an old Hebrew word for being miserly or stingy. Zechira means to remember, good memory. Shikha means to forget, forgetfulness, silence, lies, truth, flattery, gossip. Teshuvah meaning admitting your mistakes and getting started from scratch, changing your ways. Torah means to learn, to set aside time on a regular basis and be consistent about your learning. God-fearing, yirat shamayim. Materialism or the desires, ta'avot, all sorts of ta'avot. The ta'avot, there's all sorts of ta'avot. Desire could be desire of the flesh, could be desire of playing cards, it could be desire of drinking. Kavod is the pursuit of honor. Nekamah, revengefulness, dikaon, depression, etzanut, frivolity of the mind or clowning around. What I did not have the time to do is to point out here on a scale from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 how much does an Aries have of each one of these. But real briefly, Ga'ava could be a problem for them, arrogance. The fire signs have a problem with Ga'ava more than the other signs. Air could also have a problem with Ga'ava. Anava is therefore something that they need to learn. Humility is something that they need to learn more than anybody else. Busha, they also need to learn. They're not always ashamed of what they do and what they say. Azut, they have too much of. They're too audacious, too aggressive. Ahava, they can be very loving, so usually they're fine. However, sometimes on their terms. They need to be sensitive towards others. Hatred, they don't really hate. There are some signs who are capable of hating with all their guts. They're not, they forgive and forget. Compassion, they can have. Cruelty, they don't have. Joy, simcha, they're very good at. They excel in simcha. Da'aga, they don't worry. They're fearless. So they don't have a problem with worrying. They're not nervous either. Harata, they have a problem with. They don't easily regret. They think they're right. Anger, we said they have. Appeasement, not necessarily. Jealousy, they're not really jealous. Diligence, they have. Caution, they lack. They're not lazy. They're generous. They're not stingy. Zechira, they have a problem with remembering debts, remembering commitments. Shikha, they forget. Shtika, they don't keep their mouth shut enough. Sheker, they don't really have a problem with lying, but they do have a problem with exaggeration. Emet, they're usually honest. Usually. Hanifut, flattery, they have a problem with. Lashon hara, they can have a problem because they talk a lot, but not intentionally. Teshuvah, they will have a problem with because they think they're right, they don't think they made a mistake. Torah, they will have a problem with being consistent and learning Torah on a regular basis because they're, as we say in English, they don't have zitzfleisch. They don't have the patience to sit down for an hour and read a book, and learn Torah. Yirat Shamayim, we all need to work on that. Ta'avot, not really, they don't have too many desires except for prestige and a good name, a good reputation. Kavod, too much pursuit of honor could be a problem. Revenge is not their weakness. Dikaon, depression is not their weakness. And they're not a bunch of clowns. Letzanut will not be their problems. In other words, they can be somewhat serious. I just want to finish with the story of the Gemara. There was once a mother that took her son to the astrologer. And the astrologer said, your son was born at an hour which will give him the propensity to become a thief. So she ran to the rabbis. Rabbis, what do I do? So the rabbis tell her, listen, make sure his head is always covered with a kippah. Like this Yirat Shamayim, the fear of heaven will always be on him, and he will remember at the moment that he has this temptation to steal, that Hashem is watching him. She once took this son of hers to a picnic. And here he was there with his mother, and a strong wind blew off his kippah. The moment the kippah went off his head, he immediately went to the neighbor's tree to steal some fruit. You saw from this incident that rabbis were making a point how the only thing that can anchor down any tchuna, any characteristic that is negative, the only thing that can hold us down is Yirat Shamayim. If one has more respect and love for Hashem than anything else in the world, then he will be able to face whatever weakness that he has and control it and deal with it. A person does not have Yirat Shamayim, does not have Torah, does not have who to give an accounting for, then why should he care? Why should he think for a moment that he was wrong? Rabbis tell us if you're born with certain traits that are negative, you can channel them towards something positive. Somebody that has a lot of Mars in him, and that could make him cruel, and that could make him aggressive, and that could make him a murderer. He should use that energy to become a shochet or a mohed. Let him slaughter animals and not human beings. See, you can channel the good energy you have and use it towards something good. It's all possible. It is my wish that all these classes, especially the ones dealing with astrology, that should, Bezrat Hashem, help us understand ourselves and others, but not just understand them, allow us to see the positive and the beautiful that is in everyone. A lot of people make the mistake of only focusing and picking on the negative. He's like that, she's like that, whether it's his husband or wife or friends, they pick at each other and they only point out the wrongs and the mistakes and the bad. We need to learn and train ourselves and get used to looking at the good, and every one of us, believe me, has a lot of good. Thank you very much.